Between Life and Death by Jaclyn. Chapter 53. Sage? Slowly, I came to, my hearing kicking in faster than my sight. My eyelids parted, revealing a bit of blinding light and a stark silhouette. I fought with them until finally they fluttered open. We were still in the village square, the cold cobblestones biting into my skin. But something strong, and sturdy, and warm chased the cold away. A beautiful dark-haired male held me close to him. The wind gently teased the tips of his black hair, pulling it to the side, as if it were coaxing him, begging him to take flight, because that was something he could do. He could stretch out those incredible wings and fly away if he wanted to, or he could stretch out those incredible wings, whisk me off the battlefield, and fly me to the top of a sharp, drastic cliff, where it was just the two of us. My breath hitched, caught somewhere between my throat and my lungs as I stared into those eyes that held no light, that were made entirely of darkness itself, older than time. He wasn't just Vaughn anymore, he was the god of death. And I was no longer just Sage, I was the goddess of life. I had a decision to make, to decide what this was between us. Seconds ago, I had been in a place where we were on opposing sides, where we were enemies, where I felt that intense hatred for him in my heart. But that feeling warred with what I felt now as I looked at him. I could trip on my path of personal growth, and fall back into old habits. I could assume the worst based on that single memory, but deep in my heart, I knew that it was just the beginning, and that in between then and now, we had made 100 more memories. Those memories, the good ones, were the ones I wished to see, and even though I couldn't remember them right now, I was not without good memories from this lifetime. Because the memories where Vaughn walked in the sun with a basket thrown over his shoulder as we headed into town, those ones came back to me. No, I would not fall back into old habits. I had grown since then. And with time, I would regain those memories. But now, all I wanted was to follow the feeling in my heart. And so, maybe there was a time where he was the god of death, but right now here in his arms, he would always be. Vaughn, I said breathlessly, my fingers reaching for his freshly shaven cheek. But something was wrong. When I touched him, my fingers left a smear of blood in their wake. I stared at them. Where did it come from? I remember. Some of it. You are the god of death, I said, my torso lifting, my bottom still firmly planted on the cobblestone road. And Vaughn waited, his hand cradling my face, his free arm around my torso, supporting my weight. I'm the goddess of life. I finally said it, taking a deep, much-needed breath. And it was strange, because it felt like my first real breath, like I had been wearing a constricting corset my entire life, and I had finally ripped it off. I am pleased to hear you have regained some of your memory. It is relieving to know you finally remember who you are, stated a voice to my left. I grimaced. Arkan. I turned and glared at him, noticing that my movement was no longer riddled with nausea. The incessant, aggravating power that made me throw up was gone. I blinked and looked up. The crown of thorns was gone too, but the iron collar was still around my throat. Why hadn't Vaughn removed it? Why were we still here? Better yet, why was Arkan still standing? I looked to Vaughn. I want to get out of here. His eyes traced my face as if he were committing it to memory. He held me in his strong, steady arms, my fingers woven into the black fur that poked out from underneath his chest plate. He leaned forward and pressed his lips against my forehead. You will do one thing for me, little goddess. His request came with the saddest smile, and seeing it there was like someone had taken a dagger to my soul. He whispered, you will live this time. I had never heard his voice like this before because normally it tasted of bourbon, but right now, it was more like whiskey, the kind you drank when you needed to smother your sorrow. I shook my head. I didn't understand. My gaze fell, and I stumbled when I saw it. A large wound gaped near his stomach. Beside him, a shattered sword of glass drowned in his ichor. I jerked up from his arms, my hands shooting to his stomach. Did I do this? I cried out. You had some help, Arkan replied faster than Vaughn could. He thumbed over his shoulder, directing my gaze to Soren. Soren sat not far from us, rocking back and forth, his arms wrapped around his knees with his head dropped into them. Although it was faint, I could hear it. He was crying. My head swirled with a dozen thoughts, like how had Soren been able to harness my power when I wore the iron collar, but the semantics of it didn't matter. Right now, only one thought mattered. You have to get away from me, Vaughn, I said, trembling like a leaf caught in a windstorm. I pulled away from him, my movement awkward and weak, like a baby deer learning how to walk. If I could get far enough away, maybe the bleeding might stop. He let out a withheld breath, that mask cemented in place, hiding the pain I knew he felt. I'm sorry, little goddess, but I cannot. What are you talking about? I said, stumbling backwards, Desperate to put some distance between us, I bumped into something hard. Hands wrapped around my shoulders, steadying me. Arkan's voice filled my ears. The Blood King could not stand to see you suffer. And so we made a deal. Arkan, let me go. I twirled, facing him, watching as he rolled up the sleeve of his crimson jacket, revealing the tattoo on his forearm. A skull wearing the crown of thorns. What is the deal? I cried out, turning to Vaughn. That the crown of thorns is given back to the spirit realm so it can be properly destroyed, so that it cannot hurt you anymore, Vaughn answered as he slowly rose to his feet. The ice sword was nearly gone, melting from his heat. Even like this, he was still the epitome of a strong, mighty warrior, proud as ever, even as he was bleeding to death. And in return? I asked, my body aching to go to him. But I held firm, anchored my feet to the ground. He asked for your life. Arkan paused. So in return, he is giving me his death, his immortal death. My world teetered, spinning as if it were off its axis. An immortal death, that meant Vaughn would be gone, forever, erased from existence. No, I whispered, panic constricting my breath. Come, little goddess. Vaughn conquered the distance between us, unfazed by his gaping wound. He pulled me into his arms, his embrace instantly righting my off-kilter world. Obsidian eyes locked with mine. I had never realized how spellbinding they were. How easy it was to get lost in them. That was, until now, and now, I couldn't look away. He tipped my chin up, his deep, decadent voice burrowing into my soul. And let me kiss you one last time.